Saint Kabir Gurukul, Desh Bhagat University, and all our esteemed universities and schools. Before we proceed with the session, I request our Chairman for Education Committee, Mr. Anirudh Gupta, to kindly take forward the session, and I request him to moderate the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rimneet, and good morning to all of you. And extremely grateful to all the speakers who have joined us today. And I also welcome all the educationists from schools, colleges, universities who are with us today on this very extremely important webinar on management of academic intellectual property. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and in my own capacity as Chairman of the EC of the PhD Chamber and CEO of DCM Group of Schools, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you. I also take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Shalini Gupta, Vice Chancellor, Deshbhakt University, Mandi Gobindgarh, Dr. Ashish Sahani, Assistant Professor, Department of Biomedical Engineering, and Faculty in Charge, IIT Ropar, TBIF, Advocate Geeta Gulati, Trademarks and Patent Attorney, Dr. Shweta Sen Thalwal, Head IPR, Integrum IP Mohali. I am indeed grateful for your kind presence. Ladies and gentlemen, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been working as a catalyst for the promotion of Indian industry, trade, entrepreneurship since 1905. So it's been a journey of almost 115 years. PhD Chamber is a forward-looking, proactive, and dynamic pan-India apex organization, which as a partner in progress with industry and with government, with special focus on MSMEs, works at the grassroots level with strong national and international linkages for propelling progress, harmony, and integrated development of Indian economy. To render IP services to MSMEs and startups in the region, I'm happy to announce that PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry has set up an IP facilitation center at Amritsar under the aegis of Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. IPFE Amritsar and Chandigarh are providing all IP related services like trademarks, patents, copyrights, designs and geographical indication. We are also organizing series of events to publicize and apprise stakeholders of the services of IPFC for startups and industry members. Friends, as we know, we are celebrating World Intellectual Property Week 2021. IP Week is celebrated every year from 26th to 30th April, which shines a light on the critical role of SMEs and startups in the economy and how they can use intellectual property rights to build a more stronger, a more competitive and resilient businesses. We celebrated World IP Day and conducted a session on how to protect and commercialize your ideas on 26th April, which was followed up by a session on importance of intellectual property rights for startups on April 28th, and session on accelerating entrepreneurship with IP organized yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, today's program is fourth in the series under this IP Week celebrations, being organized today with an objective to apprise all the participants on why IP is important in academia. Secondly, to discuss about the overview of various IPs generated in academic institutes, commercialization of IP developed by academia, ownership rights, and technology transfers. Today's program will clarify many IPR issues being faced by the education industry by our eminent speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, as an educationist, as an important stakeholder in the industry, we all need to be aware of and we all need to understand the importance of IPR, especially during these pandemic times when a lot of our teachers, our educationists, they are creating different kind of contents. You know, it might be content on a certain topic, or it might be, you know, content related to certain issue. So right from your logos to right from, you know, any kind of content being created by you to, you know, any kind of initiative. So we all need to be aware that, you know, how we can get the intellectual property rights for the same. So today's session is going to be extremely important, and I'm sure that, you know, at the end of the session you will be aware of that, you know, the entire gamut of things about the IPR and how we can promote our brand, how we can ensure that, you know, the things, you know, where we put in a lot of hard work and diligence are not, you know, just taken away, so, or copied. Fine. So in so many ways, you know, this is going to be an extremely important session, and I also urge all the participants to take active part in deliberations and avail all the services being offered by IPFC Amritsar. So with this, you know, I will like to initiate the proceedings for the day. And first and foremost, you know, I will like to invite Professor Dr. Shalini Gupta. Uh, she is a professor of entrepreneurship and a vice chancellor of Desh Bhagat University, Mandi Gobindgarh. She has worked for various academia industry and academia collaborations. She is extremely passionate and a visionary leader who has worked as an institution builder and has around 27 years of academic, administrative, industry, mentoring, and research experience. So, I welcome you, Dr. Shalini Gupta, and I look forward to your address to begin with the proceedings today. And over to you now.
Thank you so much, Anrit Gupta ji. Thank you for the kind words as well. And it's my pleasure to be here amongst all of you today again. And I'm happy that this time IPR week has been celebrated not only by one institution, but by many of the institutions. And this is the proof that we are contributing a little bit from our side, and we are trying to disseminate what we call IPR. And today, this is the effort again in association with Desh Bhagat University and many more institutions along with PhD CCI. So my take on the today's topic, that is management of academic intellectual property. So my thought is that the core activity of any university is academics, which is followed by research. So IP is required in academics to ensure that knowledge transfer takes place effectively. IP plays very important role in strengthening collaboration between university and industry. And government has also taken many of the initiatives trying to accelerate the transformation of inventions into industrial processes and products. By grant of IPR to universities, it allows the commercialization results of research, and it enhances the chances of developing many more startups. And that is the primary focus of nowadays of IEDC, of the universities, and primary focus of Desh Bhagat University as well. So the research which is done through R&D activities, they produce results in the form of scholarly publications. And finally, we are trying our level best to take those publications towards patents, new products, new databases, and new applications or computer programs or whatever is the product, we try to convert it into IPR or patent. So now I'm giving examples of my university so that the things can be similar things, they can be done by other institutions also. It's just a mutual learning, and we would like to learn from all others, whatever others are doing and we are not doing, no? So for example, what happens now, university teaching activities, nowadays it is all e-content. So university teaching activities, they also generate IP. For example, e-content, print publications, can be books, softwares, can be sound recordings, it can be multimedia or computer-based academic work. All these things, they can generate IP. So we are trying our best through IEDC and IIC unit of the campus to disseminate this information to the academia that they can protect their IPR. So all these can be protected by copyright. The internet and modern technologies, they have also fostered greater access to scholarly material, but there is a great conflict over the ownership. Here comes the role of IPR in academia. So to understand all this, all the universities, all the academia, they need to have the suitable IP policies to deal with the ownership and management of teaching material, access to scholarly information, and use of third-party material. We at Deshmukh University, we have developed our own IPR policy in view to safeguard and protect the right of our stakeholders. And without a formal policy regarding ownership and use of IP rights, the different stakeholders in the university, like researchers, technicians, students, or it can be, visiting researchers, they will have no guidance on how to make decisions regarding IP. So it becomes all the important for any of the universities to go for the IPR policies for their academia to safeguard their interest. Though government is doing many things, but I still feel that something more is to be done in terms of the universities, like our universities, we are investing our own. If we get some assistance from the government side, or I would request here PhD CCI side, because the cost and time of patenting is very high, it being a little new area. So the point is that people are not very aware about the processes, maybe going for the patent search, how to apply to patent search. And there are many processes till publication or till final granting of the patent. So my request will be to PhD CCI that if something can be done, hand-holding can be done for the university students and researchers to cultivate the IPR. Thank you very much. And this was my take on academia and IPR. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shalini. It was extremely insightful, and certainly, on behalf of PhD Chamber, I can assure you that we'll be taking, making more efforts to help the students, particularly to give them more guidance and hand-holding on IPR. So, moving on, I'd like to invite Dr. Ashish Sahni. Is Dr. Sahni there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So welcome, Dr. Sahni. Dr. Sahni is assistant professor at Center for Biomedical Engineering at IIT Ropar, where he's heading the medical devices lab. And he's also leading the technology business incubator of IIT Ropar as faculty in charge. And I'm happy to share that, we have already signed a MOU with the IIT Ropar TQIF on behalf of DCM Group of Schools to work together, to help the students and, to set up incubation centers in the school. Dr. Sahni did his PhD from IIT Madras and postdoctoral training from Harvard Medical School and University of Michigan. His work spans across multiple fronts of medical device development, including hardware, software, simulations. Industry startups are welcome to reach out to him and to leverage his expertise and lab facilities through consultancy and other engagements. So welcome again, Dr. Ashish, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gupta. Am I audible to everyone? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible and you're audible too.
Right. Okay. So although the topic was probably importance of IP in academia, then after thought yesterday night, I was trying to write something on this. Then I thought maybe it's better for me to talk about importance of patenting in academia rather than spanning over complete IPR domain, because what I have found is in Indian universities, publication papers or even in books, these are pretty standard. Means these are some things which everybody does, and that's what even counts in our academic profile building, and also every professor, you will go to their page, they will write how many books they have written, how many book chapters they have contributed, how many journal papers, conference papers. These are standard, and these are the ones which are typically counted even if you apply for any faculty job or any academic promotions. So that way, I thought role of IPR in academia, when we talk about, we should probably focus on the zone in which there is a real weakness in the academia of India, which is the role of patenting. Okay, so patenting is where I think we are the weakest. So if we look at, so currently, this is the economies are moving into knowledge driven economies. Okay, even those economies which were considered as which have a lot of hard power, or if we look at, say, Saudis investing a lot into technology products, even though they are very rich in oil. And similarly in India, you see which are the most richest states in terms of their average per capita output which they are producing. So if you look at most mineral rich states in India, probably are the poorest, starting from Orissa, Jharkhand, if you take. So that way, just having a lot of physical property does not make, in today's world, probably does not guarantee that you will be rich. So in a sense of richness from both individual as well as from the business perspective, and also from a country or state perspective. So it's extremely essential that we realize this fact that we are moving towards a knowledge-driven economy. And when we talk about knowledge-driven economy, it becomes very obvious that academic institutions are there to play a very key role, because the business of academicians is knowledge creation and knowledge generation. So, but since time immemorial, academia has been put in this cocoon in which they are protected from all other, financial things. Even in a sense, it has gone to such extent that academia means you will be paid less money, but you will, you will be working as much as others. But as an academician, you are expected to take less money for everything. So in a sense, that whole mentality of academicians are meant to be poor, but meant to be knowledgeable. This has been there even in our, if you go to our older cultural texts where where we have these like Adi Shankaracharya, or people who used to be, or Brahmins and such, who used to be the custodians of knowledge. They were supposed to be poor people. So that's why the differentiation which you have created in form of, like, if you are going to academia, then you should not think about money too much. So that has to change, because if we are going to live in a knowledge-driven economy, so there it is essential that the knowledge which we are creating, and by the way, the most of the knowledge which is in the sense, the most of the knowledge which is being created through a lot of public funding, huge amount of public funding. For example, every IIT, probably the yearly budget runs from 300 to 400 crores. So that way, and all this money is coming from where? It's coming from taxpayers' money. So in a way, everybody of this country is contributing a part of their income for development of these academic institutions, for creation of this knowledge. And if this knowledge is only being created, and if it is not innovative enough, and or it does not go back or gives something back to the society in formation of some kind of products which are useful, or in formation of businesses which can employ or give employment to people, then what use is this kind of funding? And is it only for publications that we are doing it? And if those publications are ultimately not leading to any products or services or jobs, then does it make sense to even go ahead with this kind of funding to the institutions? And that's what probably Government of India is waking up to over last many years. And that's why probably there has been a lot more focus on applied research and research which can lead to, and there has been a lot of focus on facilitating startups and facilitating facilitating programs like this, like the one which we are having. Probably 5 years, 10 years back, people were not having programs like this. So at least the way we are starting to think about these things in a more serious manner. So that's what I want to tell here. So if you look at what we are trying to do now, probably Western countries have already done it 30 years, 20 years back. So we are, kind of late on the bus. So, but yeah, even China was late to the, party, but it has now, overtaken everybody. So I will show you the next slide. But if in this slide, you can see how much money are just the universities of West earning for their, for their country. So in a sense, like you can see, all of these are running into millions or billions of dollars of royalties or infringement settlement, which are, which have been claimed by the universities of West. So again, talking about China, China is of course the most interesting case, although, because of recent skirmish in the border and all, China has become the enemy number one. But there is a lot to learn from this country in the sense like the meteoric rise of this country has been phenomenal. And that's the reason that, why they have become so powerful and why they don't care about anybody else. It's a simple calculation. If you have money, if you have, basically everybody respects you. And we have to understand that rather than thinking about, okay, why are these guys coming and what is this going on at border? We should probably focus on what is the reason that we are not as strong as them or as rich as them. So if we look at China's patent filing over 2019, so there have been 14 lakh patents, almost 14 lakh, 14 lakh patents, which they have filed in year 2019. While if we look at, they are far away, almost double or more than US. And if we look at India, India stands at paltry 52,000 patent applications in 2019, out of which 65 to 68%, if I remember correctly, are filed by NRIs. Okay, those who are staying outside India but are Indian citizens. So that way, if we count actually Indians who are staying in India and filing for patents are about 18-20,000 in number in 1 year. So that we are far behind what in terms of our patenting, what patenting we are doing per year. So we need to match up this gap. So what is that which are the primary hurdles in Indian universities, which I thought of yesterday, and these things have been coming up even within our IIT system. We try to have a patenting, we have policies in place, but yeah, there are fundamental limitations even in IIT we find, and of course in other privately or local universities, this might be even more prominent. So the first thing is awareness of fundamentals of patenting laws and procedures are not there. Even the basic idea of what can be patented and even the types of patents, like a utility patent versus a design patent, these ideas are also not there. Most people don't know about it. Whenever they do something, they think primarily of publication. They don't think, they don't know the timelines of patents. They don't know where to go about it, how much cost is involved. So many times, just because you don't know something, that's what leads to, you're not even trying it. That's one reason. Second one is, although there is well-defined weightage, for publications in a academician's profile building, like the universities ask for how many publications you have, they don't, many of them, or most of them in fact, don't put patents as one of the criteria, or don't weight it in similar manner as that they do for the publications. So in fact, IIT Roper's patenting policy, which has been edited a couple of years back, that they have changed that every published patent will be considered as equivalent to one journal publication, and every granted patent will be considered as equivalent to 2 journal publications. Okay, So that is one modification which is there in IIT Ropar. Other IITs might be having similar policies. Then there is a lack of active funding for patent applications, because one thing which is happening in publication domain is that number of journals which give you free publications, of course by having the copyright with themselves. Most of the journals which give you free publications, like the author does not have to pay. In that case, the copyright is stays with the journal publisher. So most of the authors in India try to publish through that pathway. And so there is no cost which is involved most of the time to the university as well as to the professor to publish anything. So that's why most people try to take that pathway. But when we come to patents, there is a cost involved, and many times that cost is not negligible. So typically in the range of 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees is required to go through the full patenting process from end to end. At least the Indian patenting process. So universities need to be forward thinking in terms of thinking like, okay, they should not think it in terms of that this is an expense, this is an investment. And if the university builds its patent portfolio by investing, say every university can put up 10 lakh rupees as a corpus, and every year whichever patent applications come in, they can evaluate it in-house and then put out these patent applications. And in a year, or say in a couple of years, they will be able to show a patent portfolio of 30 to 40 patents. And that will be a great thing to do. And most universities, including IITs, don't have that. Even in IIT Ropar, we don't have that. If a professor has to file for a patent, probably I'll have to find some project through which I can get some money. And if that much time is involved in that, I'll probably prefer, okay, let's go with the journal publication. Why to delay our publication? So those things, lead to, this is one of the hurdles in the patenting process of through academics. And then lack of IPR policy guidelines in most universities, which make it very vague on who will own what in patents, and who will have the IP rights, how much percentage of royalties will come to the inventor, who will be even the concept of who is the inventor and who is the owner. That is not, most people are not aware of that. So that is what, these learnings and these awareness has to be developed. So, and wherever policy exists, they are not so encouraging. For example, in some institutions, the policy might be that, okay, if that work has been done at our university, the royalty which will be coming, we will be owning 50% of the royalty. Once the researcher has worked a lot on that, universities should be more lenient in terms of how much claim they want to keep on the royalties. And that should be in the initial phase, you want to encourage more people. So even if you put 10% royalty for the universities, it's still better than like I was reading in a book that 0% of zero, sorry, 100% of zero is still zero, or say 50% of zero is still zero. So if you have 0 patents and you claim that I will have 50% of royalty of the patents, you are still getting 0 royalty. Instead of that, have 10% of the royalty and maybe you may get some money. So that has to be understood by our universities. And lastly, this is the last slide I will be speaking about. So because I am involved with the technology business incubator at IIT Ropar, so one thing which patents give us, patents are very closely related to entrepreneurship. Actually, if you are not going to be an entrepreneur, or if you are not going to, or not looking at a technology transfer, I really don't see any point in going for a patent, because it will be wastage of resources of both yourself or university, whoever is paying for it. Ultimately, if the technology is going to be translated as a marketable product, either by your own company floated by you, or by a technology transfer, then only it makes sense for you to go for a patent. So patents and entrepreneurship goes hand in hand, and companies with large patent portfolios are regarded very highly valuable companies. Now, one important thing about companies is that companies exist for profit. Whatever you may say, but ultimately, if the company is not making profit, it will not be existing for very long. And competition is the enemy of profits. Okay, so from a business perspective, from an economics perspective, economists like competition, but businessmen dislike competition, because competition means they will have to cut down profits. And there's where, if you want that a business should grow, or your own business, or you want to make a business, there's where a strong patent portfolio is very essential to cut down competition. And that's the primary goal of having a patent, that you want to cut down competition so that you can build a profitable business. And that is what will be a good incentive for any inventor to even do any invention. So that's the point number one here. And so in the end, I would like to say that clear patenting guidelines and funding, active funding of patenting by faculty and students is very essential to unleash the animal spirits of the academic community, and especially of students who have a lot of and even young faculty have a lot of energy, and they want to do just that. If we can channelize our resources in such a way that they are more optimized towards these kind of activities, I definitely feel that we can match China in a couple of or maybe few years. Okay, thank you, Rimnit. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish. It was extremely insightful, and I'm sure we'll be able to not only match China, but to go beyond that. So I hope all the academicians and educationists who have joined us today must have taken a lot of benefit from this presentation. And at the same time, we also got to learn that it is not just protecting your own content or creation. It's this is something where you saw that universities are earning so much of billions of dollars out of it. So it's very important for all of us to gain an understanding about the IPR. So thank you again, Dr. Ashish. And moving ahead, let me invite Ms. Geeta Gulati. She's an advocate which specializes in trademarks and patent attorney. So she will be talking and about the IPR and giving us an overview of various IP generated in the academic institutes. And she'll be also talking about the commercialization of IP developed by academia. So welcome, Ms. Geeta, and over to you.
Thank you, Anirudh, sir. A very good morning to all of you. Now, Dr. Anirudh has raised a very important question, why we need IP in academia. And Dr. Ashish has thrown a challenge at us that we have to do better than China. So I think after this seminar, we have to work on this, that we have to be better than China. We have a very strong neighbor, we know it, but it's a very good challenge being thrown at us. So I'll begin with the question that Dr. Anirudh raised, why we need intellectual property. Now, as you know, intellectual property is the creation of the creator. Now, if this intellectual property is not registered, not protected, you are leaving it open for thieves. Anybody can come, they can steal your intellectual property and make money out of it. And you will not be able to do anything about it unless and until it is registered. So that answers the question of Anirudh sir, that why we need intellectual property. Now let's see the kind of intellectual property which is important for academia. I'll first start with copyrights. The reason I want to start with copyrights is because copyright is in expression. Expression means different work which are created by the creator. Now, since our universities, it's synonymous with research, the research material is the creativity of the creator, of the professors in universities. Now, how do you register it? And what do you mean by copyright? So first, let's understand different types of copyright. Now, there is the first copyright is in the literary work. Now, what is a literary work? Literary work is something that you have compiled, and you have created a guide or a book, or it's your writing on your subject. That is literary. Now, what is artistic? Artistic is songwriting. Artistic is artistic is painting. It's design, any drawing. That is artistic work. And then you have sound recording, and you have worked in music. So these are the different categories of copyright. But for today, we'll be discussing about literary work, because most of the literary work is created in the university. Now, how do you go about registering it? Once you have created a new content, as I said, it could be an original content created by you, or it could be a compilation of work done by other writers. Both can be copyrighted. What you need to do, if you are taking anyone else writing and compiling it, you need to give credit to that person, that this is taken from such and such book, or it appeared in some journal. And you can file copyright for that writing. Now, what is the procedure? Now, procedure is absolutely simple. This is a misnomer that is difficult to file intellectual property. It's again a misnomer that the government fees is very high. The government fees is not high. Government is actually trying to incentivize, and government is trying to encourage the creators to file and register intellectual property. The government fees is not more than 1,000 rupees for copyright. You have to file an application informing the Copyright Office that this is your work, this is the title of your work. You have to inform the language of the work, and you have to share the work with Copyright Office. So the procedure with Copyright Office would be, they will scrutinize your application, they will see your work, and if they feel that it is an original work and they have not given registration for such work, your work will be registered. We have often seen that, we gave the certificate from Copyright Office is provided within 3 months if the work is original. If the work is not original, if they feel that they have some doubt, they may raise objection. You will get hearing date, and you can satisfy the Copyright Office that the work is not copied, it is your work. Now, here I'd like to discuss one case with you. A few years back, I had a client who had written a book, and that person had taken material from some other writer, but had not given the credit for the work. Book got published. It was in publication. It was being sold before online and in bookstores. And this person, when he came to know that I have not been given the credit, that person sent a legal notice to my client. So my client came to me and asked, what can we do? Now, I knew that my client has actually infringed the copyright of another party. And accordingly, he advised that it's better that you give an undertaking that unintentionally it happened, and you will withdraw the material from the market, and the new books will be published. So this matter got closed at this point. The other party did not insist for damages. Other party could have asked for damages because you have sold the books in the market and you have gained some profit out of it. But the other party did not emphasize on it because my client gave an undertaking. Now, this may not happen in every case, so you have to be very careful that you should not infringe on any other person's copyright. Now, Dr. Shalini raised a very important point about ownership of copyright. Who will have ownership in a copyright? Now, let's understand that. Now, there are two concepts under copyright law: contract of service and contract for service. Now, I'll make it simple. If you're working as an employee of a university or an institution who pay you for that work, then it is contract of service. So whatever your research you have done, whatever documentation you have created, the ownership is going to be with the university, unless the university and you have an agreement in place that you are going to be co-owners of that work. The second concept, as I said, contract for service. That is, say, university has hired some independent contractor. Independent contractor means somebody outside the university. Say, for example, they've hired me to write something on some topic. Now, I'll own the copyright on that work because I created it for university. Now, again, university can have an agreement with me saying that, though we are paying you for this, but you assign the entire work to us and you take your fees, and the ownership right will go to the university. I'll give you another example. Dr. Shalini also raised a point that these days professors are creating a lot of e-content. Now, say if you've created an e-content for e-commerce, e-education website, or for if you are a YouTuber. In both the situation, what will happen if you've created a content for a certain website and if you're paid for it, the organization may ask you to assign the copyright to such organization. You may give the entire right that you have in the work, or you may give limited right. You have that choice as per law, but that will be the negotiation between the parties. And if you're creating an independent content and you upload it on YouTube, you have your own channel on YouTube, then the copyright will stay with you, because you would be gaining from it. You may receive advertising money from it, but the ownership will remain with you. You will not assign it to YouTube because YouTube has not hired you for that work. I hope with these examples I have made it clear the concept of contract of service and contract for service. And if somebody has some doubt on this, I'll be happy to clear after the session. Now, another concept of copyright is the term of the copyright. Now, the beauty of copyright is, unlike any other IPR, the term here is for the lifetime of the author and 60 years after the death of the author or the company or the university who has created the.
Ma'am, kindly unmute.
Yeah. So, sorry for this. Now, I can give you another example. That the session that I am taking today, this is my copyright. Whatever I am speaking is my copyright, and the copyright belongs to me. After my session, Shweta would be sharing her creativity with you. She would be sharing slides. The slides prepared by Shweta for this session, the copyright belongs to Shweta, not to anyone else. Now, coming to the part of commercialization of copyright, how you can do commercialization of copyright. I have already shared the assignment part with you, that if you are creating e-content and you yourself don't want to upload it on YouTube, if you are sharing it with some education website, you can take one-time payment, or you can have an agreement with them that every time there is a click of your work, somebody is purchasing the work or they are getting revenue out of that work, that can be shared with you. So these things are very, very important. Here I like to share a very interesting case with you. All of us know about Chetan Bhagat. He had written a book and his book was adapted into a movie. Now, he did not enter into a very smart agreement with the producer of the movie. He gave all his rights to the producer, that the producer can adapt his work into any form. So movie was made. And he was given one-time fees for that. But this movie ended up earning 1,000 crores. So it was a big loss to Chetan Bhagat as an original creator of the work. So the lesson that we learn from this case is that when you are entering into an agreement, you should also enter into revenue sharing agreement with the person to whom you are transferring your rights. And if you transfer that technology to, or you enter, not even transferring your technology, but even if you enter an agreement for commercialization of your invention, it will be very helpful for the industry. Or you can open your own business if you have that entrepreneurship in you. So how do you do it? The first step would be that you register your idea, you protect your idea. Now, protecting of idea has two stages. The first stage is that you file for provisional application. You don't have to wait for the entire work. And once you file for your provisional application, you have 1 year time to file complete specification. Now, there's another misnomer. Many inventors, they feel that they cannot file application. It is something very difficult. No, it's not difficult. You just have to write a patent, and with practice, you will come to know how to write patents. You can file application on your own, or you can take help of government institutions. Government is helping in filing patents. They're ready to pay the government fees also and the attorney fees also. Then once you file your provisional application, after 1 year, you can file your complete specification. And once you file your complete specification, after you have informed the patent office about your invention and you've claimed on it, you can start manufacturing the product. You don't have to wait for the grant of the patent. You can always mention that the patent is pending. And now this is the stage where you can enter into an agreement with industry, and you can forward your research to industry and you can commercialize it. You don't have to wait till the patent is granted to you. Again, I'll emphasize on the agreement part, that how that agreement is drafted with the industry. My suggestion would be, though it depends at that stage with whom you are negotiating, that you also have revenue sharing agreement with the industry, because every time the product is sold, the industry is making profit out of it, so that you should also be able to earn out of it. But it's a risk. Sometimes a product may not sell, so it's a good idea to take one-time fees and close the chapter. So, but it's going to be something very personal, but yes, it can be commercialized. Now, patent term is for 20 years. Now, since the term is very long, 20 years is a very long time, and if you are doing patents for technology may become redundant, say after 6 months or 1 year. So it's a good idea to do research, file for patent and commercialize it if you yourself cannot commercialize it. And as Dr. Ashish said, it's a wonderful thing to have it on your CV that your patent is pending or it is being granted to you. Then let's discuss something about trademark. Now, I said copyright, when you're filing application, there's going to be a title of your work. Same is the case with patent. When you're filing patent, there's going to be title of your work. Now, what is this title? The title is nothing but trademark. So, trademark basically has 3 components: the name, the color, and the logo. So, if you are traveling to South India, or you're traveling to some other country where English is not spoken and written, you can identify the mark with the logo. Just last night I was watching a movie and I saw a board where Russian was written, but I could identify the mark because the mark was of McDonald's, the famous M. So this is the power of logo, that the logo becomes so synonymous with your work, with your business, that you're able to identify it even if you are unable to understand the language in which it is written. Now, all the intellectual properties when you're filing allows you to amend your application. Why I'm sharing this with you? Because what happens after some time, you may want to change the logo, you may want to change the color of your mark. It is allowed, you can do it by simply filing an application and paying the government fees. The trademark, once you have filed, the process is, if you want early trademark, it should be granted to you early within 3 months or 6 months. The best that you can do is, with application, you can also share documents related to active use of your trademark and the revenue if you are already generating. And your application will be processed, it will be examined. If your mark is not similar or same to any other mark, you will get the trademark. Now, before you file or trademark or you file patent, we'll suggest to you that you do your thorough search. Search means that you would check that the same patent or same trademark has not been filed by some other party. Because if someone else has already filed, you will never get the trademark or patent for your work. And even if by mistake, say, the registry allows, if the mark is, if your trademark is not same but similar, the other party may object to it. And if they object to it and you are not able to convince the registry on it, you will not get your application. And there will be an unnecessary delay, and you will have to pay expensive also for it. So the best thing that you can do is do your thorough search before you file it, and you will get your registration. Once your mark is registered, it is valid for 10 years, and this mark can be renewed any number of times. Now, both patent and trademark are territorial. So when I say territorial, I mean that it is only valid in India. It is not valid for any other country. So say you have a business in France or a business in Sri Lanka, you will have to file patent and trademark in those countries as well to protect it. If you don't protect it, anyone can take your trademark. And we generally advise our clients to file it only if they are economically exploiting their work in the other countries. The reason is because unnecessarily you will be paying for the government fees and the attorney fees. So if you have no plans to do it commercially exploit your creativity in other countries, you can let it go. Because in any case, you can't do it in 200 countries. So wherever you feel it is necessary, you do it. Now here I like to share a case with you. One of our clients, he registered his trademark, which was the name of his business. And he had a website also with the same name. And he took a top level domain name .in, which is India domain name. He did not realize that he is actually infringing the mark of a very well-known organization. Though this name, was very common, everybody knows about it, but somehow he didn't know about the law that he can't do it. Now, this organization had filed an arbitration case against him before NIXI. NIXI is National Internet Exchange of India. So he came to us, he said, I've got this notice to stop using this mark. There's an arbitration case against me, what do I do? So we told him, as I see, you don't have a case because you have not registered it. And had you registered it, trademark office would not have given you this mark because this is not available. The other party has already taken it, and not just in India, they're registered in 153 countries. I said, sorry, we can't help you. It's a losing case. But client wanted to fight for some reason. So we fought this case and we lost this case. So the lesson that we learned from it, and the businesses can learn from this is that your search is very important. File it. If it is available, if it is not available, and by mistake, if you have taken it, leave it. Now, sometimes what happens is what others can do is they will not only take you to court because you're an infringer, they will seek damages. And the damages granted by Indian courts are really huge. Delhi High Court and Mumbai High Court are two very active courts in India. And most of the IP litigation is filed in Delhi and Mumbai. And the courts are liberal. Without listening to you, they will grant ex parte injunctions to the holder of the intellectual property. And after they have heard the entire case, they grant damages. Now it becomes very difficult for businesses to come out of it. So the best is that before registering, you should know whether you have created something new or you have copied. Now, if you want to copy, legally there are provisions for you how you can do it. If there is an organization in some other country and they have no plan to start business in India, you can talk to them and you can get that trademark assigned to you for doing business in India. Like example is McDonald's. McDonald's is not an Indian company, but it is registered in India. So, but the rights came from the parent company. So that is the legitimate way of doing business. The same can be done by academia also. Now, the other intellectual property that I want to discuss with you is plant variety, which is very important, but not many applications are filed under Plant Variety Act. Now, as the name suggests, plant variety means that if you are able to create a new variety of a plant, which was not in public domain, which nobody knew about that plant, or you have developed a plant which the yield of the plant is more than what was already known to the general public. Under these circumstances, you can file for your creativity under Plant Variety Act, and once it is registered, you can either do plantation yourself or you can transfer it to some agriculturist. Now, trees and vines, the term is 18 years. So once you have registered, you will get the registration, your registration will be valid for 18 years. And for the rest of the plants, it's going to be 15 years. Now, there are many Indian farmers who have started the vineyards. So how they have started? They started because they have either got their plant registered or they have taken technology from some other registered organization. So the agriculture universities in India, professors at agriculture universities, if they are able to come up with some new plant variety, the same can be registered. Ownership right, I have already shared. It could be, they could be co-owners with the university, or they could do it individually. Individually they can do when they do it in their own personal capacity. If university is funding your research, and in that case, university would want to be the co-owner with you. And there again, as Dr. Ashish have raised very pertinent points, that what is the share of the royalty going to be? What is the term going to be? Maybe, the university may not want you to have it for the entire term, and or the rights that are given to you. These are all the things that should be agreed upon before the registration happens. Though we have not seen any court cases between professors and universities, but I'm sure there must be few things happening. So to prevent all those things, that as Dr. Ashish said, you need to have a good IPR policy at the university level. The last intellectual property that I would like to highlight is industrial design. So what is an industrial design? Industrial design is in the product, the design of the product. It could be your mobiles, your laptops, specs, the shirt that you wear, design of a car, jewelry, anything which is any product which is developed in a factory, which can be put to industrial use as an industrial design. Now, industrial design, why I'm saying is important for academia. Say, you are in mechanical engineering department and you have come up with a new design of an engine or a new design of some component of something which is not there in public domain. So you can register that design because maybe of the design that product becomes more useful. So then it is an invention. So that design can be registered. So with this, I think I'll stop and I'll request all the participants to kindly ask us some questions, because because of paucity of time we can't touch upon everything. We can only give you a very brief idea about IPR. And since all of you are academics, you can do your own research, and you can also go to the website of government, which is ipindia.neet.in. You will get all the information about IPRs on this website. And you can also do pre-search. The search for trademark and patent is absolutely free. So I'll be happy to take questions after Shweta has finished. Both Shweta and me will be happy to answer, because that will give us some direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Geeta. I mean, it was actually quite knowledgeable, and you touched upon virtually every aspect of the importance of IPR in academia. And I'm sure the audience must be having a lot of questions. And after, we are Dr. Shweta's address, so we can take on some questions. So thank you again very much, Dr. Geeta. So moving further, so now I will invite Dr. Shweta Sen Thalwal. She is head of IPR and Integram IP Mohali. Dr. Shweta is an Indian patent agent with elaborate experience in patent and trademark filing system, strategies, patent laws. She possesses a doctorate degree in biotechnology and a postgraduate diploma in intellectual property laws. So she is currently, as I said, heads the IPR with Integram IP Mohali. So welcome, Dr. Shweta, and we look forward to you speaking on ownership rights and technology transfer.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, and good afternoon to all. So I'll be discussing today about the ownership rights of IPR, though much has been discussed today. So I'll be elaborating more. So ownership rights of IPR. So first question, I think this has been answered, but I'll touch it briefly. That is any IP generated in academic institutions? Yes, in terms of inventions, publications, databases, new plant varieties, computer programs, and so on. I know there are some school students also. So for the students who are in the school, they are also very innovative these days. So I'll tell those students that even if you are making that TikTok videos or something on the Instagram, they are also your IP generated and they are covered by the copyright. And comes under this films and sound recording section, copyright. Then computer presentations you make, multimedia works, etc., are all the IP generated by you. Now, one question, okay, there is one IP generated in terms of patents or copyright or trademark. Who is the owner of that particular IP? Is that institute, university, school, teachers, or student? This is governed by three things. First is the national IP law, which is by Government of India. Second, is there any IP policy in the university? It will also be governed by that, ownership rights. Third is there any written agreement between the university or the creators? If there is any written agreement, the ownership rights will be decided according to that agreement. If there is no written agreement, if there is an IP policy of the institute in place, that will decide. If there is no written agreement, if there is no IP policy on the ground, then it will be decided by the national IP law. Now, IP rights are mostly vested in the creator inventor, except the inventor was an employee when this IP was generated, and this was part of his work which was assigned to him or her, or where there is as we discussed, there is a written agreement between the parties, the creator and the institute, or is this IP is generated. When this IP is generated, it was funded by some government agency, then that government agency is the owner of that particular IP. okay, this seems very fine. Okay, whosoever has funded is the owner of the IP. Mostly the dispute arises when an employee does some work at home. वो कहता है कि मैंने आपके इंस्टीट्यूट में किया ही नहीं, या मैंने जब मेरा टाइम खत्म हो गया था आफ्टर आवर्स में किया है, या फिर मैंने अपने कहीं आई प्रोड्यूस दिस वर्क आउटसाइड ऑफ, दिस इज नॉट इन द स्कोप ऑफ माय एम्प्लॉयमेंट for which you are paying me. This doesn't come under your employment criteria. So now who is the owner of that particular IP? And mostly the dispute arises at this particular point. For just to solve this thing, all the inventors who have created some work must think one thing, that are you the only inventor, or did someone else contributed to your idea? If the answer is yes, then it's very good. Okay, for people who have helped you with the idea, just make them sign the agreement with you, and you are good to go. If the answer is no, then again there's the question, did you and your co-inventor agree to jointly exploit the technology or assign it to corporation? Okay, then it is yes. Then congratulations, you have the invention. You can file a patent, or you can go for IP protection. If the answer is no, then again there is a red block. Please contact a patent attorney for advice, because you may need a legal opinion about the invention rights. So this is a flow chart which tells that, do you really own a invention, or maybe this will lead to some problem in the future legally. So I have just tried to make things simple. So nowadays, COVID times, of all the classes are online, digital data is there. So who is the owner of IP of teaching material generated by the employee? So this also comes with the IP policy, if there is any in the institute, or there's a written agreement during the employment. There can be two approaches. Either the employee is the sole owner of the copyright of that written material, that teaching material. In case the employee is the sole owner of this copyright, he has the full license. He has the full freedom to license it to the third parties, but he has to give a royalty-free, non-exclusive license to the institution. This can be one thing. Second thing, institute is the sole owner. Institute will be commercializing this particular copyright, but this institute may or may not share the revenues generated by the commercialization with the employee. But the institute may give a royalty-free, non-exclusive license for the personal use to the particular employee. So this can be these can be two approaches for this thing. Now, students can also generate the IP. Who is the owner of the IP generated by the students? If the students are working on a sponsored research project which is funded by a government agency outside the university, then there must be a written agreement at the very outset, there must be a written agreement between the two parties, that is university and the funding agency, and the royalties or the ownership must be decided on that written agreement, that who will the owner, or there will be some they will be sharing this ownership, or what will if one is the owner, then maybe there is some they will share the royalties or something. So there must be a written agreement, written contract between the two parties, but the student will not be the owner of this research, this IP. Students working on research thesis or publication in collaboration with academic staff. In this case, clearly you are taking the help of your teachers, who are the employee of the university. So the IP will be with the university. Use of university resources, very clear. The owner will be the university. Now there's in many universities, there are some visiting researchers also. So in this case, who will be the owner of the visiting researcher? Owner of the IP which is generated by the visiting researcher, because in some cases maybe this visiting researcher is bringing the existing IP to use at the host institution, or maybe he will be creating the IP during their stay at the host institution. So who will be the owner, and whether it is whether it will lead to the infringement of somebody's IP or something. So at the very outset, at every point, I'm just repeating one thing, that there must be this has to be decided by the written agreement, and if there's no written agreement, then there is a legal problem coming up. Mostly if he's bringing this existing IP to the use at the host institution, then I think the host, the institution where he or she has developed that IP is the owner. But in some cases where if the IP is generated at his stay at the institution, this particular your institution will be the owner of the IP. Now, who owns IP in collaborative or funded work? Mostly this is determined with the contractual arrangements between the parties, but the funding agencies has always the upper hand, and they are mostly the owner. But yes, it is again decided by the contractual arrangements between the parties. So what now, written agreement, I'm always telling you that there must be a written agreement between the two. But one thing, that what is the best approach to deal with the ownership issues? These are some guidelines which I can say, that there must be a fair balance of rights. There must be some win-win situation for all the parties. It should provide incentives to the inventors. On the other hand, it should provide some incentives to the university also, so that it must be a win-win situation, and it provides all it encourages the institutes to it encourages the institutes to provide the funding to the inventors, and inventors have the inventors are they must have they must feel that they have to do some inventions. So for this, there must be institutional IP policy. This is just a definition, which is a formal document which typically deals with the who will be the owner and who will have the right to use the IP. Then these are the points that this is what an effective IP policy is, which provides a legal certainty to the ownership, and which will avoid the legal fight in the future. And very briefly, I'll be touching this technology transfer. What is technology transfer? As the very name suggests, that it is a transfer of the technology from one entity to another, from company to company, from university to company, or from a national lab to a company. That is what is this? You will be transferring your IP rights to from your university to some other university, or to the company for the commercialization purpose. Broadly, this technology transfer is of two types: assignment and licensing. And what is assignment? Assignment, you can understand that assignment, you have a house, you sell it and get some money in exchange of it. You sell the ownership rights. You are no more the owner of that particular house. That is assignment. So you will be selling your patent, your IP, your trademark, whatever IP rights you have, to the some other entity. And this is assignment. You will not be owner of that particular IP in future anymore. That is assignment. And what is licensing? Licensing is you are renting that house. It is renting that IP property. You are the owner of that particular IP property, intellectual property, but you are giving somebody to use it. That is licensing. Licensing can be two types. It is exclusive, that you are renting a house to a particular tenant and he will be using it. No other will be using it. That is that is exclusive. And another one is non-exclusive. What is non-exclusive? Like you are you are converting your house into a paying guest accommodation, and this will be used by many tenants. So that is non-exclusive. And franchising is also a part of this non-exclusive licensing. You see that McDonald's have chain of outlets. So these what McDonald's has done, it has given the franchisee to the others to use it on a written agreement that there will be some this will be the color code combination in their restaurants or something, this will be the burger or like that. So this is the difference between the assignment and licensing. As this picture shows the difference between assigning and licensing a photograph. So if you are the owner of a copyright of a photograph, if you sell it to a particular person, you have assigned it, you have sold it, that is assignment of that particular photograph. If you give if you rent, if you let one person to use your photograph, then it is your exclusive licensing. And if you let many use your photograph, then it is non-exclusive licensing. With this, I stop my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful presentation. Yes, sir. What do you? We can, yeah.
Ravneet,
So we can now open house for query session. Participants, they can show a raise of hands and we can unmute them, or they can also drop their queries in chat. We'll be answering them one by one.
So Ravneet, I'll like to request you to please, handle this interactive round. If anybody is to ask any of our eminent speakers, so they can ask. And after that, Archana will be delivering a vote of thanks. And I thank Dr. Shweta for her excellent input on the ownership rights and technology transfer. Thank you, Dr. Shweta. So anybody has anything to ask from Dr. Shalini to Dr. Ashish to Ms. Geeta, though all the presentations were extremely elaborative and they dwelled upon most of the topics on IPR. So still, if anybody has anything to ask, feel free to ask.
Yeah, I once again announce participants, they can show a raise of hand. We can take your queries. Till then, also, you may also, we have one query from Surinder Singh. Yes, sir, you may please ask.
I'm audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, actually, I have one question which I got answer from Ms. Geeta Gulati, and I have one question regarding the copyright. Actually, for the copyright, if we write, suppose we are in academic institute, we are writing a research paper, which is basically in some point of time it will be a novel work. In some point of time, it will be a hybrid work or be a rephrasing work of somebody who done that work. We are using the same algorithm. Can we go if all the papers, suppose we have 0% plagiarism in the paper, can we go for the copyright for that paper before submitting to the journal?
So, Rami, should I take it?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it's a good question. I did not touch upon this point. Now, it can happen that there is some work written in English, and say there is a professor in India who translates that in Punjabi language.
Yes.
So that is an adaptation. It's an adaptation of the original work. So will you have a copyright in that work or not? The answer is yes, you will have a copyright because you have translated it into Punjabi. The original creator created it in English. But
Yes.
then you have to give credit to that person to avoid any litigation that this is an adaptation of the original work. So you will not get copyright for the original work, but you'll get copyright for the adaptation of that work in different language.
No, ma'am, it is fine. I'll agree with your word. I want to tell you that suppose I am a PhD scholar. I am writing a research paper on my objectives, and
Right.
in some cases the objective will be a novel. Suppose a new objective. Suppose we design a new antenna. For that we are going for a copyright and design, but it is fine. But for the cases, those scholars or those professors are actually writing the paper, which is a work of any other, and they suppose add suppose a algorithm completed at suppose at Y line, and they added a Z line in that algorithm. So that algorithm will be we go for the copyright, or it is remaining the basic algorithm for XYZ person have their own algorithm. So my question is that for that particular patent, for that particular content, can we go for the copyright?
No, not for the basic, because it was not created by you. You will
Okay.
get copyright only for your work.
Okay.
All right, because the law says even if you have taken this substantial part, say a small part you have taken, not even substantial, small part also you have taken, you will have to give credit from where you have taken it. Otherwise,
Okay, it's
it will
fine.
not be infringement.
Okay,
So,
it's fine, ma'am. It's fine, ma'am. I'll agree with your
that's
question. And
why I shared that case with you, which was where the book was published, and some portion of someone else's article was taken in that book, but the credit was not given. So that
okay.
amounts to infringement.
Okay. Suppose one more question, ma'am. Suppose I were taking some algorithm from some person, but that person is not it published their content in journal, but the journal the content is not copyright by that person. If I copyright that content, it credit goes to me?
Sir, unless and until the other party is aware of the fact and they go after you, you are fine. But if the other party comes to know about it and they are able to prove that they are the original creator, you are in big mess.
Okay, it's fine. Last question, ma'am. Suppose we have a B.Ed college with us. So in B.Ed, we have an option that there are many students, those who are creating a charts, which are totally their own creative design. For that, we are going for the copyright by using the IPR search portal of IPR website.
Yes,
If
sir.
it is,
So any drawing will come under artistic work.
yes.
And it can be registered as a copyright.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. Archana ma'am, you would like to ask, or we can take query of Mr. Sanjay first? Okay, so I request Mr. Sanjay Bahal to kindly ask your query.
Mr. Sanjay Bahal can please unmute himself.
Mr. Sanjay, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you can also hear me out, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is very, because I am many a time in dilemma once we are doing research on certain topics which are for the humanity. And is it, ethical to go in agreement with the university or with the institution? Because sometime, as ma'am was discussing, that Chetan Bhagat went in for an agreement, and then for that movie, and then that movie earned 1,000 crore, and then this person was just left high and dry. So is it ethical that yes, because yes, we are being paid by the organization, we are paid by the university. And is it ethical that we must, whatever money, I think whatever money comes for the patent and other thing should be given to the university, because we are paid for it. And because that is a dilemma. If you can help me out in solving this dilemma, please.
The thing is, though university is paid for your research, but you are the creator.
Yeah.
The creator is more important than somebody who is putting money into creation.
Correct.
So going by that logic, it is okay to negotiate terms with the university. We should be fair to both the parties, and not just universities. I'm saying even if you're having agreement with industry, go for a very sound agreement, so that you are also able to earn money out of it, because that is the incentive of intellectual property. What is the good of having a certificate in your office hanging on the wall and you're not made money out of it? Money is going to be the incentive.
But Geeta ma'am, many a time we are not aware of certain, legal implications which are there in this. And being a person, who is teaching ethics and who is very with the Indian ethos, but it is our job to, write research paper and do research and even get it patent. But sometimes I see if somebody comes, I want to use it, and sir, I said, okay, go ahead, no problem, you can use. But then I find that somebody have used that idea, and with the money also he is making. And then people tell me, yaar, wo to paisa bana gaya tera naam pe. Main bola, theek hai, no problem. That is his, at least he has put his brain. But again, I am in dilemmas many a time that whether to go for the agreement or not go to agreement and what to do. I agree with you. Yes, legalities are there, and we have to be, be very particular regarding the legal aspect of the agreements. But many a time, वो बोलता है sign कर दो, 15 pages होते हैं, we just sign and move out. I tell you, that is the biggest thing,
So the thing is, I would say, there are two parts to your question, और मैं दोनों का आंसर देती हूँ. So thing is, as Dr. Ashish said, हमारे पास जो है ना अभी बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है कि चाइना बहुत एग्रेसिवली जो है ना रिसर्च कर रहा है. तो उसको हम कैसे कैप करें सर? उसके लिए हम हमारे एकेडमिशियंस जो रिसर्च कर रहे हैं वो हमको इंसेंटिवाइज करना पड़ेगा. अगर हम उनको इंसेंटिवाइज नहीं करते इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी, they will not feel good to do research, because you will feel cheated at the end of the day that you did the research and someone else is making money out of it. So I think dilemma में नहीं होना चाहिए. बात सही है आपकी, all of us think that teachers are like gurus, but the guru also need to be incentivized. So I think we are all living in times. See, the thing is, अगर तो suppose कीजिए कि कोरोना का वैक्सीन अगर कोई इन्वेंट करता है, तो उसमें समझ में आता है this is for the social cause. वहाँ पे आप money aspect छोड़ दीजिए. लेकिन जहाँ पे you know that it will be commercialized, then why should you not take your share of money?
Correct.
I think you should. तो criteria से वो रखिए कि social public welfare के लिए है कि कैसा है.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, आपका एक क्वेश्चन और था रिगार्डिंग दैट वो 15 पेजेस का एग्रीमेंट. सो सर, आई लाइक टू शेयर विद यू, you should read each and every line, because the other party can be very smart. We have seen parties, what they do, they even change pages अगर आपने हर पेज पे साइन नहीं किया है. So you're dealing with very smart people outside, so you should be very smart at it.
Yeah, ma'am, we have another query from Mr. Ashok Singla. Yes, sir, you can ask.
I do have a question to Sweta, madam. So we are launching one app, that is My Farm Easy. So we have already registered this trademark. So are we required to register for the intellectual property rights for this app?
Yes, sir. You have filed for a trademark.
Trademark, that is my farm easy.
Okay, okay. Then,
The company is a private limited company. So, but the name My Farm Easy, that has already been registered. So we want to register the intellectual property, whether it is covered or not.
trademark is also a part of, is a type of intellectual property. But you are saying that you are using a Farm Easy and you have got this name,
My Farm
trademark. You
Easy,
have got this.
that has been published in the official gazette. So after 1 month, we will be able to get the trademark. Because there
Okay,
is
good.
no
Yes.
because there is no
Okay, so you have software, and for software comes under copyright subject matter. The subject code and object code has to be copyrighted. So I suggest that you should go for copyright of your software for that particular app.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Can you give me your mobile number so that I may contact you later on?
Surely, surely.
Please.
You can, yes, yeah, or either you can consult Ms. Ramneet Kaur.
Yeah, I
And
have
she will
already
be
messaged him that he needs to
Okay, no
drop us a
problem.
mail and then we'll connect with the concerned
surely. Yes,
attorney. Yeah.
yes,
We have
yes.
another query from Mr. Surinder Singh. So you can please ask. Mr. Surinder, can you hear us?
Till we get Mr. Surinder back, Geeta ma'am, I have just this one simple question from you. That we all in academia, we keep, doing small innovations almost every other day because our challenges are with human beings. They are not with machines. So every day poses a different kind of problem, and we put our mind to it and we find solutions. Like we curriculum different design for differently able children and so many other things. But what is the journal perspective? Why we do not go for copyright or this? Because we feel that even if somebody used it by rephrasing it, okay, suppose I have designed some learning activities for specially able children, and somebody just rephrases it, changes the word and the sequence of, say, the activities or the steps, whichever way, can I ever challenge them for that?
Absolutely, ma'am, you can. Because the one thing that I didn't share, but I think I should tell all of you, filing copyright is not compulsory. Like trademark is compulsory. You should file registration. You will get ownership right only if legal ownership right if you have registered your trademark. In copyright, that concept is not there. But it becomes difficult for you to fight the battle in court because the judge is going to ask you, do you have the certificate from the copyright office? If you have the certificate, your job becomes easy. Otherwise, you have to prove that you are the first creator of that work.
Okay.
That is the only hitch. Otherwise, it's not compulsory to or important for you to file for copyright, because you are right. Every day you're creating so much content. It may not be possible for you to file copyright for every content, but you should keep documentation that you are the original creator of the work.
And as per your experience, how fast are these courts, in deciding the verdict? I mean, tarikh pe tarikh yahan bhi hoti hai. Like, what's your experience?
See, Delhi High Court is very dynamic. So most of the IP matters goes to Delhi, then Mumbai. We are in Chandigarh, so Chandigarh does not see many IP litigation, but slowly we are seeing कि yes, थोड़ा सा traffic आ रहा है, but थोड़ा मुश्किल है. इस region में थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो रहा है. Because the other problem is that matter is not going directly to the High Court; it goes to the District Court.
Okay. Thank you so much. That answers my question. So do we have Surinder sir back for the question? I think.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question again with Geeta Gulati, ma'am. The first question is, ma'am, because I am a part of an academic institute, so I have the responsibility of 5 colleges under me. That I have a problem with the hotel management faculty and students. They come for the patent, and in the patent I know that we go for GI, geographical indication. Ma'am, can a recipe can be patented under GI? Or new recipe of any student or a recipe or anything nutritious thing can be generated by any mixture can be generated, it can be patented?
The wonderful question you have asked, and I'm going to request Shweta that if in case if I miss something, she can add to the answer. Sir, GI is different and patent is different. Both are
Okay.
different intellectual property. The recipe can be registered under GI also, but you will have to prove that that recipe belongs to this particular state. Like sarson ka saag. Sarson ka saag we know is from Punjab.
Yes.
Right. So if you can prove that this sarson ka saag originated from Punjab, you can take GI for this product. I'll give you an example. Mathura ka peda is, I think, registered as GI.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can show that this particular recipe belongs to the particular area, you can file it under GI. Patent is different. Now, what is patent? Say, sir, you come up with a recipe of instant sarson ka saag.
Okay.
Okay, because it takes time to make sarson ka saag. So if the process of making that recipe is inventive or there's an inventive step involved, then you can file for patent.
Okay, thank you so much. And one question for them, for ma'am, CCP student, pharmacy students. For the pharmacy and biotech, again, the problem is actually we go for interdisciplinary patents, one electronics and one engineering sit with the pharmacy and biotech student, and they made a MEM sensor. So, ma'am, independently for the biotech and pharmacy student or a faculty, how they can go for the this IPR?
So, सबसे पहले तो they need to check whether whatever they have created can be patented or not.
Okay.
Secondly, they need to see whether what they have created is inventive or not. या उसमें कोई inventive stuff involved है कि नहीं. Once they're clear on this, then they can go to any institute if they can't do it themselves. PhD is helping. There are other institutes, so they can help in drafting for patent application.
Okay, ma'am. Last question for the computer science students, they come for the app, and in the app we know, ma'am Shweta clearly defined that you go for subject and object code for the copyright. Ma'am, for that subject code, particularly particular subject and object code, if the logic behind that subject and object code is copied from the internet, that many students copied from the internet, so it is not gone for the copyright. But if the logic of that app is totally new, then we can go for the copyright, or already available logics which are not be copyright and it will be available on the internet. Can we go for the patent for that particular logics?
Sir, first of all, we need to understand India may, as Shweta very correctly said, copyright is software is copyrighted.
Okay.
The software is not patented in India.
Okay.
It is patentable in US. Okay.
Okay.
If your software is embedded in hardware, only then it can be patented. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Now, what is a copyright? As I said, copyright is in the expression. जो दिखता है वही copyright होगा.
Okay.
तो जो आप कोडिंग कर रहे हो वो तो आप पीछे कर रहे हो, तो जो वो एक्सप्रेशन दिखता है आपका, that is copyright.
Okay. Expression के
अगर किसी ने सपोज कीजिए कि जैसे फ्लिपकार्ट का वेबसाइट है, अवन क्लैप का वेबसाइट है, नाइका का वेबसाइट है, सपोज कीजिए कोडर्स जो है सिमिलर कोडिंग कर रहे हैं, बट जो एंड रिजल्ट है वो थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है, then it can be copyright. Copyright office is not going to go into the coding part. वो सिर्फ expression देखेंगे.
So that means for the software students, we actually bunch of CSE students we have 800 plus students. So for that students, we ask him to, if they have the app, so they have to embed that code into any hardware sort of thing or any processor, microcontroller, then it can be patented easily.
Yes, and I think Shweta is better equipped to elaborate on that.
Ma'am, kindly please answer, Dr. Shweta.
Yes, yes, Mr. Surinder, that becomes a patentable subject matter, but it is again subject to patent search, that whether somebody has already disclosed this your idea or not. But yes, it is a patentable subject matter. Software embedded in hardware.
Okay, independently, we can't go for if the student came that software that I have built a new software, build a new logic, build a new web page, kindly go for the patent. It cannot be patented.
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you
In
so much,
India,
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have now another query from Mr. Ekamdeep.
Thanks. My question is, what are the costs, basically maintenance costs available in maintaining a patent of its lifetime in India? Any ballpark figure will suffice.
Isn't need the track?
There is some noise in his speakers, but he said he is asking basically the cost of the patent.
I'll repeat my question, ma'am.
Queries aani hai na sir.
Yes, Mr. Ekam, you can repeat your query, please.
My question was, what are the costs involved in maintaining a patent in India? Any ballpark figure will suffice over its lifetime.
So once you've got the patent, you have to pay certain sum regularly. So this sum can change. It is not something that may not change. So it's like, it's in thousands. It's less than 5,000. You don't have to worry. वो इतना महंगा नहीं है जितना लगता है कि पेटेंट बहुत एक्सपेंसिव होगा, ऐसा नहीं है.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So any other query? If there are no further queries, then I request our co-chairman, Education Committee, PhD Chamber, and Director, Saint Kabir Gurukul, for her vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Rivni. Thank you so much. So our most valued speakers on the panel today, and very, very respectable participants, so many curious participants from many schools, colleges, and universities. I extend my warm gratitude to you on behalf of all the office bearers at PhD House, Chamber of Commerce, Punjab, Chandigarh, and as in my capacity as Chief Learning Officer at Saint Kabir Gurukul and co-chairperson at PhD Committee of Education. This has been a very, very interactive session. I loved it so much that I couldn't afford to miss even one sentence, even spoken by our very knowledgeable speakers. First of all, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to Professor Shalini Gupta, Vice Chancellor, Desh Bhagat University. That is an amazing initiative which is being taken by this university, that they are kind of extending this facility to their students and professors to help them patent their researches and help them, licensing and all this. And she very well advised that there has to be a proper standard operating procedure in place at universities and educational institutions to enable research and then having these licenses, and this way protecting the intellectual property rights of their researchers. Next, I cannot afford to miss the knowledge. This quote by Dr. Ashish Sahni, this will stay with me, sir, as a principal also. The knowledge which is being created in this knowledge-driven economy, that too by public funded research, It must be translated into products or services or jobs to solve the problems of society. Very well said, sir. And you're absolutely right. We need to motivate our system. We need to actually challenge ourselves to compete with China as far as the race for patents go. Why? Because China and India have same issues mostly and same strengths also if we look at the population and the kind of labor we have with us and the resources that both the countries have. So very well said, sir. I'm deeply indebted to you for these beautiful opinion. Then Advocate Geeta Gulati. It has been an absolute pleasure, ma'am, to listen to you because you have answered, so very technical questions in a very, layman language, I would say, so that people like me who don't know even alphabet of, law could understand it really well. You have beautifully elaborated the question raised by Ms. Shalini Gupta earlier about the ownership of copyright and then explaining the difference between copyright and patent. So, and your case studies were really very helpful and very interesting that you shared. My next, vote of thank goes to Ms. Shweta Sen, Head IPR Integram IP Mohali, for sharing some really useful guidelines to ensure the fair balance of rights over intellectual property through a very commonly used metaphor, easy to understand metaphor of renting or selling a house to clarify the difference between assignment and licensing. I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Karan Gilotra, Chairman, PhD House Chamber of Commerce, Mr. R.S. Sachdeva, one of our mentors there, Mr. Simarpreet Singh, co-chairperson for PhD House Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Bharat Singh Mehta, co-chairman, PhD House Chamber of Commerce, Chandigarh. And last but not the least, all the sponsors and supporters who helped us organize this program. And my most favorite person here in the end, whom I am facing right now on my screen, who takes care of all the logistics, who somehow brings us so many, people busy in their own little, knickknacks that we have put ourselves into to bring us all together and to take care of logistics so beautifully and so, I would say, like a liquefied presence. She enters wherever she senses a gap. Thank you so much, Rimneet. I really am indebted for helping us with all these beautiful programs. Thank you so much. Thanks to Dr. Madhu Pillai also, the director of PhD House Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned with us for many other programs also. This was IP Week, which we conclude today, but I'm sure we have very, very interesting, very knowledgeable programs in pipeline for you, for which Rimneet will be in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very kind words and appreciating our events, which we have organized in this IP Week. So today was our concluding event of the IP Week. And we hope, all participants, they benefited from the content and different topics which we have covered in this week. And we look forward to organize many more such knowledgeable, informative sessions. And my special thanks to Geeta ma'am, to Shweta ma'am for their presence. Today Geeta ma'am was busy, but somehow she, took time for this session. I'm so grateful to you, ma'am. Special thanks to you. And also, my special thanks to Sumit, to Vipin, they're always there with me, supporting me with, carrying out all the events, which is difficult, for a single person to organize. So I thank my team for all the support and look forward to getting IP registrations now, Now, since the schools and universities, they have attended our, events in this full week, earlier also we were organizing. So now we look forward to your responses in terms of getting IP registrations, be it trademark, patent, copyright, industrial design, GI. So we are here to support you. You have our coordinates with you. You can get in touch with us for any IP support you require. and we'll be happy to, serve you with all the best we can offer. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, I'm ending the session for all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah.